Senator Ken Conrad is a Democrat from North Dakota. He chairs the Budget Committee and joins us from Washington this morning. Senator, good to see you again.
Good to be with you.
It strikes me that expectations for the speech are so low that maybe there is something he could say tonight that really does get people's attention, that appears bipartisan, that looks politically possible. What could that be?
I think we really have to be pursuing two tracks. One is to strengthen the economy in the short term through additional measures to encourage job creation. As you know, Carl, most of job creation occurs in the private sector, not the public sector. But there are things the public sector can do that would help build confidence. And then we have to have an overall 10-year plan to substantially reduce the deficit and the debt. And, of course, we now have a special committee working on that. Some steps have already been taken, but much more needs to be done.
If you're writing his speech, do you go bold and dare the GOP to turn it down or to threat turning it down going into 2012? Or do you really need to embrace something that can get done quickly, maybe something like a free trade deal?
Look, I think you have to be bold. In a circumstance in which 1 out of every 6 Americans is either underemployed or unemployed, that calls for bold measures. I think he also has to remind people how we got in this situation. This is not something Barack Obama created. He inherited a fiscal disaster. America was on the precipice of financial collapse when he took office. And the history of these financial collapses or near financial collapses is very clear. It takes 8 or 10 years to recover. We've just had the definitive work done by Professors Carmen Reinhart and Professor Rogoff of Harvard. 200 years of economic history, 44 countries, looking at this very set of circumstances. And what they found is when you have enormous damage to the financial sector, it's very different than a standard recession. And it takes 8 or 10 years to recover.
Senator, you've been very vocal about the need to cut the deficit aggressively in the next 10 years in order to get the country back on track. Here you are saying that we need to spend in the short term. Do you think in order to make it more palatable to both sides of the aisle to spend more in the short term that the president needs to propose ways to offset that spending immediately? Do we need to hear we're going to spend this much, but we're going to cut here to make up for it?
No, I don't. I think it would be unwise to pay for the spending that's required now. And by the way, I personally believe the focus should be on infrastructure, roads, bridges, schools, airports, rail, because we not only have a budget deficit, we also have an investment deficit in this country. And we need to address both. Not only would that create jobs here at home, it would also improve the competitive position of the United States. But all of it has to be done in the context of a 10-year plan that substantially reduces the deficit and the debt, and I'm talking about on the range of $4 trillion of debt reduction over that period.
Senator, did I hear you right? Did you say that it would take typically 8 to 10 years for an economy to recover, given what has happened to the financial system? Are you saying that we are therefore 4 to 6 years away now from a recovery?
That's what history shows. Again, if you look at the research that's just been completed by Professors Reinhart and Rogoff, Reinhart, the University of Maryland, Rogoff from Harvard, 200 years of economic history, 44 countries. What they found is this is a very different circumstance. When there is major damage done to financial institutions, when their balance sheets are badly impaired, it takes 8 or 10 years for a full recovery in order to get back to a full level of employment.
So shouldn't that really be informing the policy decisions in a very different way? If you're saying we've still got 4 or 6 years from where we are now, we're going to have a fiscal contraction in 2 or 3, is that wise?
You know, what is critical is that you turn the corner, begin moving up. But we are also in a very difficult situation in which our debt to GDP is going to be 100% at the end of this year. that same study reveals when countries reach debt levels of that magnitude, their future economic growth prospects are damaged. So we face an incredibly difficult fiscal calculus. Additional assistance to the economy in the short term, but more fiscal discipline in the long term, and the timing of when you make the transition is especially difficult in a circumstance like this.
Senator, people have been talking about Reinhard Rogoff for a while, and we understand your point, but for the president to come out and say something even close to that would be a complete U-turn from the marketing of, say, recovery summer over the past couple of years, or this idea that stimulus would have taken unemployment below 8%. Wouldn't it be a complete reversal in tone, an admission that all the policies to this point have been wrong?
No. I think it'd be a confirmation the policies have been largely right. In fact, they averted a depression. That is also the finding of Blinder and Zandy, who did a detailed analysis of federal action so far. They concluded without them, we'd have 16 million people unemployed today. So those steps were right. We should have actually done more of it, but it should also have been done in the context of a long-term plan that put us back on track in terms of deficits and debt. The problem is that's a complicated message. Undeniably, that's a complicated message, because what you need to do in the short term is directly contradictory to what you have to do over the longer term.
Exactly.
But the problem is that's economics. Economics is not always clean and neat, and sometimes it's counterintuitive. But that is the reality of what we confront according to the best analysis that we have.
Well, we're going to see what happens tonight. You will be there, I assume, right? Unlike some of your colleagues.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll see if he can wrap it all up in time for kickoff. Senator, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Ken